When I was working down at Port Dover, one year I decided I needed to have an exhibit that would draw people in during Friday the 13th, right, on Biker Day. And I thought, well, what can I do that would sort of address that crowd, but would fulfill the mandate of the museum? And so I settled on the idea of an exhibit about tattoos, because, I mean, who are the heaviest tattooed subgroups aside from teenage girls these days? It was, you know, bikers and sailors, and there were lots of traditions that went along with it. And it was kind of interesting learning those traditions about things like having a cock, a rooster on the knee, or a rooster or a pig, because those animals were supposedly didn't like the water so much, so that they would not let you get in the water or something. It's supposed to save you from drowning. There were, you know, swallows that indicated you'd cross the equator, all kinds of things like that. And we actually one of the things I did was, before the exhibit, we had pictures of Popeye stuck up around the museum with a bubble coming out of his mouth saying, "Show us your tattoo." And it's amazing what people would show you. I mean, that was after I'd been working at the Quaker Meeting House in Norwich. Nobody ever showed me a tattoo there. So, you know, people would, the idea was they'd show you the tattoo, we'd take a picture of the tattoo and collect the story that went with it, because there's always a story that goes with the tattoo. And it was actually kind of a nifty bit of folklore. And so we did that, and pretty soon I thought I had the exhibit ready to go up, and I had everything sort of spread out on the floor, getting it ready to actually mount. And I looked at it, and the way you do when you're doing a project like this, there's the moment where you look at it all and you go, this is really lame. And that was when Trevor Hodge walked into the museum. It's a little wiry guy, baseball hat, white goatee, little ponytail hanging out the back, 70-something by the look of him, covered in tattoos. And it turned out he'd been a tattooist. He'd been born in Bristol in the UK and had served an informal apprenticeship with a guy named Les Scouse, who was a legendary Bristol tattooist, and his son and grandson, well, the grandson still does it. In Bristol, it's still a famous tattoo parlor. But he'd learned there, and he'd joined the Navy. He'd come to live in North America. He'd worked on a Coast Guard vessel, and then on the Great Lakes. And then when he retired from the ships, he became a carnival tattooist. And there was a point where I was driving to work, and I thought, oh my God, he's a song waiting to happen. And I didn't have to make anything up on this. In Bristol, just before the war, the tankers loomed along the shore. I would hang about the door, the shop down by the quay, and it was there when I was just a lad. I took the trade I've always had, where the hand of my first master made its mark on me. The Union Jack, the Rose and Crown, the Mermaid and the Swallow, a dagger and an anchor, and a cock above the knee. And when the bombers droned above, we inked the names of the girls they loved in hearts upon the hearts of oak, who'd soon put out to sea. I was a little older when the war was over. Even then the Navy still had need of men. And so I signed aboard in engine rooms and on the grates. I plowed my trade among my mates, gave them the marks they wanted most for what they could afford. The Union Jack, the Rose and Crown, Mermaid and the Swallow, a dagger and an anchor, and a cock upon the knee. And down there in the oily dark, on arms and backs I left my mark, forever etched in indigo on sailor boys at sea. But then one day I came to land, crossed the Western Ocean. I shipped out of Halifax and I sailed the inland sea. Sometimes when I'd step ashore, I used to take the notion that I was not as young a man as I once used to be. And now the canvas I sail under promises a world of wonder. Step right up, I'll make my mark at a price that you can pay. In the dying days of August, captain in a sea of sawdust, but the fancies of a sailor's life are out of style today. The Union Jack, the Rose and Crown, the Mermaid and the Swallow, a dagger and an anchor, and a cock upon the knee. And through the awning of my pitch, the sea waves like a muddy ditch, as from this country fair I watch ships gliding to the sea. The Union Jack, the Rose and Crown, Mermaid and the Swallow, a dagger and an anchor, and a cock upon the knee. And where my shirt sleeve meets my skin, I see a map of where I've been, and where the hand of my first master made its mark on me. Yes, where my shirt sleeve meets my skin, I see a map of where I've been, and where the hand of my first master made its mark on me.